I'm going to say good morning. I have the time zone right. You're still in New York these days?
No, I live in Portugal.
Wow. Okay. So good evening. Is that
Good
correct?
evening. It's boa tarde because it is neither morning, which is bom dia, or boa noite, which is good night because it's the middle of the afternoon.
Wow. So do you have citizenship now in three countries?
No, I have U.S. citizenship, and we are on a residency program with an eye toward getting a Portuguese citizenship.
Wow. Fantastic. Well, we're not here to talk about your citizenship. We're here to talk about the documentary. How long was it in the works for? And don't tell me, oh, my whole life. How long was it actually from conceptualizing it to it
Well,
being done?
it was interesting. I saw RBG,
Hmm.
and I thought, huh, mom is a cross between RBG and Mr. Rogers.
Hmm.
And then it was early enough in the 2020 presidential campaign
Hmm.
that Joe Biden and Kamala were still battling to see who was going to be the candidate.
Right.
Oh, and it was so early that I could afford to meet them at a meet and greet, which, exponentially the price goes up. It goes
Yeah.
from $250 to $250,000 in a very
Yeah.
short period. I got in at the early stage and I was meeting Kamala, and I was waiting in line to meet her. And the gentleman behind me and I were talking. We were waiting for her to arrive. And I said, "What do you do?" And he said, "I'm a documentary producer." And I said, "Oh, my mom's was Shari Lewis, and her
Mhm.
documentary is RBG meets Mr. Rogers." And he said, "Wow, call me on Monday." And I said, "It was 11 o'clock on Friday." I said, "I'll call you in 2 hours when we're back at our offices." And very quickly, we had a deal. I mean, like Hollywood record speed of about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then he said, "I'd like you to meet the director, Lisa. When are you next in New York?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to be in Chicago this weekend." And I lived in Los Angeles. So I was like, Chicago's halfway between LA and New York. I said, "Why don't I just keep going and meet her?" So we met, and immediately it was like meeting my Italian sister. And so we had a deal super fast. And then we met with the production company and had a deal super fast. And then everything screeched to a halt. And
COVID.
so it took about 4 years to complete the documentary. The answer I was given was COVID, but with 90% of it already shot, AKA mom's been dead a while, I'm not sure how COVID played a part, particularly because my husband was the co-producer of Station 19, the television
Mhm.
show for Chandra Rhimes. They managed to do 15 episodes a season with a giant crew, but
Yeah.
that is neither here nor there. The documentary got made, and then Concord, who is one of our financiers, once they took over selling it, very quickly we had a deal with Kino Lorber, who is one of
Mhm.
the premier documentary distributors. And very quickly after that deal, again, shockingly, a matter of weeks, here we are.
So it started fast, then got slow, then ended
Yep.
fast. Congrats on finishing it. Now,
Hey,
to further show the influence that your mother had on everyone and everything, if I were born female, I was supposed to be named Shari.
aw,
My parents chose that name because of your mother. My younger sister got named Shari as a result.
I love that so much. That
So
makes me really happy.
I don't think that there were a lot of Sharis before your mother.
No, no, she actually wasn't a Shari. She was born Phyllis. Well, she was named Phyllis after birth, and Phyllis Hurwitz was her name. But
Mhm.
ladies and gentlemen, Phyllis Hurwitz just doesn't
Yeah.
have the same ring. So she went to a camp. My grandmother and grandfather were teachers in the winter, and they ran summer camps in the summer called Camp Shari. And she liked the name and very quickly and at a young age adopted it. And then she met a man named Stan Lewis and married him, which coincided with her becoming famous. And she did not keep Stan, but she kept his last name. And now, weirdly, I use his last name. So,
Well, every time you meet a Shari, in the back of your
yeah,
head, you go, my mom
yes,
did that.
yes, most of them were named after her. It is really lovely. I have a Lambchop, and I have a very strong TikTok and Instagram presence. Um,
Yes. Yes, that is something to rudely interrupt you, something I wanted to ask you about. So when did you realize with Lambchop that it was going to be a truly multi-generational character? Because TikTok
Well,
has pushed it.
it it I picked up Lamb Chop, so to speak, very quickly after mom died because people kept asking me if Lamb Chop was dead. And I couldn't let the answer be yes. I was pregnant and I knew how to parent the way my mom parented. And we all sort of model on our parents.
Sure.
And so I couldn't imagine parenting without Lamb Chop. So I've been touring and doing performing arts centers for a very long time. And what's interesting about TikTok and Instagram is there's not kids on there. I mean, I think little kids shouldn't be on there anyhow.
Yeah.
So it is. So I like to say that Facebook is where you argue with your family. X is where you argue with complete strangers.
Yeah.
Instagram is pretty young things in pretty dresses, taking pretty pictures in pretty fields of flowers.
Yeah.
And TikTok is where the creators are. It's where the comedians are. Now, obviously, I use both because the same video works for both. But I fell in love with TikTok when I started, which was only a couple of years ago. And Lamb Chop got big very quickly, which is really nice. I get so many comments. Your mom, was my first love. Your mom was the bright spot in a dark childhood. And most recently, thanking us for being on the right side of history, which I, adore. I mean, I think if you're on the opposite side of Lamb Chop, Elmo, Steve from Blue's Clues, and Mr. Rogers, you're doing something wrong. Um, so but what I'm excited about with the documentary is
Mhm.
sometimes I'll get a comment. Someone will say, "Oh, your mother would be horrified that you're being political." And I laugh. I'm like, you don't know my mother. She was very political. She campaigned for Al Gore. She testified in front of Congress. And so the documentary, people feel that they knew my mom because they loved her when they were children.
Mhm.
But but a child's point of view on an adult is very one way. And mom was actually a human being. She didn't
Mhm.
wear overalls in real life. She didn't live in a house that had a red barn in the backyard in real life. um the
Mhm.
puppets the we although the puppets were definitely a part of our life in real life. So she was a woman, she was a businesswoman back when women weren't businesswomen. She was a ballet dancer, she was a musical conductor. She was on the Playboy After Dark. Now, she did keep her clothes on, but just
Right.
there because mom was
She-
built and she dressed like a sexy woman because she was a sexy woman.
Right.
She was a fully formed human being. And I feel like if you go see the movie, your
Mhm.
outer adult is taking your inner child to play with their best friends. And nobody's going to be disappointed. Like your inner child's not going to go, "Oh my God, she beat her daughter," or anything like that, because she
Right.
didn't, But your adult self is going to go, "Wow, what an interesting woman," because you are now old enough to meet mom as an adult, to meet her as an equal, as opposed to just a little kid sitting in front of the TV laughing at the puppet. So mom's story is a story of um, tenacity. It
Mhm.
is a story of set in a period of time. Like when mom was in the 50s, she was one of two women who had a production company. The other was Lucille Ball.
Mhm.
Mom needed her dad to sign for her credit card, and then my dad until 1974, for God's sakes. So, because that was the law.
Yeah.
And she was the one making the money. It's not like her dad or my dad was. So it's really interesting. It is the story of a very interesting, smart, strong woman's life set against the backdrop of a very interesting period of history.
Yeah.
Um, I think our director did a fabulous job. As the estate, I was not allowed to participate creatively because then it's not a documentary, it's a home movie.
Yes.
Um, Luckily, I trusted Lisa to tell mom's story. And it's not like there's another version of mom's story. Lisa called me one day and she goes, "Can you please Give me somebody who's
Something
not
scandalous.
who's not going to say Shari Lewis was very hardworking and very focused. I said,
Yeah.
no, it just doesn't exist. You know, she was very hardworking and very focused. But if I had done the movie, I would have based all the story off of all the songs Mom did, because as Mom's producer,
Mhm.
I loved seeing her perform musically. But what Lisa did was actually so much better than what I would have done, which is why the estate shouldn't be involved. Um, we had a storage container with all of the old tapes and stuff like that in it. I had no interest in going into a dirty, dusty storage container that had spiders. Lisa was jumping for joy. So I set up a pop-up tent outside of the storage container and a big white, one of those folding tables. And Lisa spent days, and she kept like running into the house and going, look, I found this from this era. And finally she was so dirty and covered with spiders that I met her at the door. I'm like, no, you are not coming into the house. I will hose you off in the backyard. But she did a wonderful job of letting Mom tell her own story. So most of the narration is through is Mom's voice.
Right. So a follow-up to all that. I think that when you do a documentary, you see all the archival stuff that's out there, some of it seen, some of it not seen, some of it forgotten about, etc. And then at the same time, you have somebody who owned most of their stuff. I know that there was a business deal or two, and you retain the live performance rights to Lambchop, which is brilliant. When you have all that known and logged, etc., do you think we could ever see a Shari Lewis touring exhibit or something that goes to museums?
Well, there is an exhibit, the only place in the world that has a state-approved Lamb Chop, Charlie Horse, Hush Puppy, and costumes and Emmys exhibit is the Center for Puppetry Arts in Atlanta, Georgia. They are also
Wow.
they are also doing the Atlanta premiere of the movie, and they are one of my favorite museums ever in the whole wide world. So they have a beautiful Jim Henson exhibit.
Mhm.
You know, I am not I am like my mother in that I am a dyed redhead and also not a terribly sentimental human being. Luckily, David Copperfield is a friend of the family. My grandpa taught him magic when he was a little boy.
Hmm.
David, not my grandpa.
Right.
And David has a huge warehouse and has very kindly curated or kept all of the old tapes and everything. If tapes are not kept at a certain temperature, then they just become paperweights.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I do not, I am not an item person. I don't want my son to be faced with everything I've ever collected, everything
You
his
don't
father.
want him to be faced with our apartment. That's what you're saying.
Right. Well, my son and his girlfriend are both only children,
Yeah.
both of, and I'm just like, so well, I didn't have a shrine room for my mother, you know. I mean, so it was all at David Copperfield's. It'll all go back to David Copperfield's, except for what the Center for Puppetry Arts has. Um, so go to the Center for Puppetry Arts and go see the movie.
And last question I have for you before I let you go. So this is a new documentary. You're proud of it. Lamb Chop is on the road when you feel like doing
Yes,
that.
of course I'm on the road. Of
Of
course
course.
I'm on the road, Darren, but I'm not, I don't have that. I mean, do we?
Yeah, we're going back to the States for a little mini tour in the spring. Some things dependent.
That's
We'll,
that's
we'll have to see if the States are still there. So
What do you mean?
never mind, I'll explain later. And
And you can find me on Tiki Talkie, and you can find me on the gram,
that's code for Instagram, right?
on the gram,
on the ground.
and yeah, on the gram, because I'm cool. I know this stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, to a 70-year-old puppet, I am sick.
Well, where I was going with that for either of you or both of you is there another project or thing that we should be checking out or waiting for? Because Mallory, you have producer genes.
I do have producer genes. There actually is. I am going to be involved in a show called Love Sucks, which is a show produced by a gentleman named Josh Disney. The star of the show is a 600-year-old vampire named Mesmeralda. She is of the puppet persuasion,
Mhm.
and a wonderful puppeteer named Susie created her. And Lambchop and I are their next door neighbors. It is and Mesmeralda has decided to get back into the dating world. So it is an adult sitcom,
Mhm.
and we're the next door neighbors. So that is in the works. I'm very hopeful about it.
Because it would be really fun just to drop into a television show.
And Josh has written some laugh out loud funny scripts. So that's what I'm hoping is next. Um, Otherwise, I don't know. I'm going sailing a lot. I'm semi-retired.
Mhm.
It's lovely. It's interesting living in another country. The
Mhm.
things that you don't know, like how do you take out your garbage? All the things are just different. Speaking the language.
Now no estoy.
Okay, that's Spanish.
That's
My
fine.
Portuguese friends say that I speak Portuñol, which is which is not good, but I'm working on it.
Espanol. Well, thank you both for your contributions for the many years. Congrats on the documentary and looking forward to what's to come from you both, Lamb Chop
Darren, thank
especially.
you so much. This was such a good, high energy interview. You are amazing. Thank you.
Paltrocast.